Alright, hello, my name is Brady Jeffries, and today I am reviewing Lyman's kind of back speech where his main claim was that the prevalence of virtual currencies in popular video games is directly causing a rise in underage gamblers. He focused on a single case, the game Counter-Strike, and betting on matches with weapon skins which are bought with the game's virtual currency. And if you remember, he needed about 10-15 minutes to finish everything. Okay, and his first supporting claim was that the rise of sites for gambling weapon skins is evidence of this increased prevalence. His second supporting claim was the direct advertisement of online gambling on professional matches is evidence as such. And his third claim was that the competitive scene itself is rising due to gambling becoming too popular. Now, I'm going to show my counter is that the controversy of underage gambling through popular online video games has diminished since it arose by showing that the support for his claims are counterintuitive to his sub-claims and/or show that the current controversy is gone. For his first claim, which was the rise of online sites for gambling weapon skins is evidence of its increased prevalence. His evidence for this was that in the last 2 years, the gambling site main one, which was GSGO Lounge, has gone from an invisible to site one that is valued at 84 million with a daily profit of 4,000. Well, this evidence only gives us what it's worth now. He didn't give us anything except for that it's an invisible site before he gambled this now, so has it increased by 2%, 5%, or 100-fold? It doesn't say. And thus, that's the whole population of the visitors who visit the site. It doesn't say how many of them are minors. I couldn't even find data on how many minors visit the site or not. His second claim, which was direct advertisement of online gambling on professional matches, is evidence as such. With his statement about ESEA, which is counterintuitive to his claim because what they are doing is they are banning teams that are sponsored by these gambling sites because these gambling sites have the possibility to allow minors gambling. This is also showing the controversy is gone because now there is no right or wrong. It's not, is it underage gambling or is it not? It is just that underage gambling is happening. For his third claim, which is the competitive scene itself is rising due to gambling, is involved, gambling to becoming popular. He did not give any evidence on the correlation between the competitive scene is rising due to gambling, whereas it may be that gambling is rising due to the competitive scene becoming more popular. The competitive scene may be rising, but the controversy over gambling involved or not. His statement about Valve banning a team for throwing a game due to gambling just adds to the point that there is no controversy on whether it is not gambling because it clearly is. And it is impossible to stop this gambling even for minors because the internet is so vast and in almost every country who all have different laws. There's no way to stop it. Some additional info, which he didn't give but it helps support my claim, is that how are minors getting a hold of these virtual currencies and how do they relate to real world currencies? Well, the way to purchase them is through use of mostly credit cards or online payment services such as PayPal, which is linked to a bank account. Well, what I got from discoverbank.com, which they have to go by the law, this is the law of the United States. The Cardholder Act of 2009 placed strict limitations on companies issuing credit cards to minors. Now you must be at least 18 years old to apply for a credit card. If you are 20 years older, to get approved for a credit card, you must provide proof of independent income or assets to show that you'll be able to make a minimum payment amount for this card. Otherwise, you will need to have a cosigner or become authorized on your parents or guardians, adults that have an account over age 21. So how do minors get money to use virtually in the first place when the means to getting virtual currency has rules against minors obtaining it? Even though cases do arise, such as Landon's, because he did say that he did gamble with it when he was 16, our society is set up to counteract most underage gambling. Thank you.
All right, I thought it started off pretty well identifying the main claim and the secondary issues that you're talking about. Once you get past that first point, though, there's not really a very clear structure. Some issues come up that you have responses to. Some different issues come up that are not really directed toward the argument that the advocate presented. And I think at the end you've got a nice counterclaim here that addresses the general subject matter, but it seems to be standing all by itself over here. The challenge on the first point I thought was pretty reasonable, suggesting that we don't really know how much greater the value of the site was once it became visible compared to the way it was prior to its degree of visibility. So it's hard to tell whether or not there has been an increase. That's a good press on that particular point. Without any context, I can understand why that is the case. I think that there's an interesting point that you have here, that one of the organizations has banned game teams who are sponsored by gaming sites, which suggests that they are concerned about this particular issue. So there's not much your position seems to be there's not much dispute that this kind of thing happens, that there is gambling on these things, but your argument is whether or not that is being addressed or whether or not it is caused by the existence of these sites. I think that you've got a good press on a later point, which is the cause and which is the effect. Is it the scene that caused the gambling, or is it the gambling that has fed the scene that we have? I think that that's a reasonable question to ask, and I think there are probably elements of both of those things being true. The advocates seem to suggest one, and I think you ought to explain why your position seems to undermine their position a little bit more. Like I said, then there's kind of this argument that suggests that there's not really any dispute that online gambling goes on, that underage people sometimes are involved in it, and that it is related to this particular scene. The question is any of that being controlled or restricted in any particular way? And I thought that you had a good counterclaim earlier suggesting that the organizations are doing something to address this issue, and then you have the credit card issue at the end, which I thought was a good response also. This is one of those subjects that's a little bit esoteric, and I'm still trying to figure out what it all means. I can tell that there is some clash on issues here, but why we're arguing about this, I think, needs a little bit more explanation from both speakers. All right, thank you.